Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Marriage Matters podcast. I'm Crystal, and y'all, my amazing husband here.
It's Ricky Jones.
Yeah, I hyped you up because you hyped. That's how you live in my mind.
I dig it. I didn't know what all to say, but, that is my name.
That's how you live in my mind.
I appreciate
my
that.
amazing husband. So I'm really excited because I feel like naturally, as we develop the topics we're going to talk about, they're really creating what I would say someone needs for a foundation for a healthy marriage. And I know what we're going to be talking about today is pivotal to you having a healthy, strong, successful marriage. And that is a safe space.
All right.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's the topic of discussion today.
Topic of discussion.
All right.
Safe space.
I dig it.
And I think I could even start by laying some groundwork for what do we mean? What does that mean, a safe space? And I know you'll chime in with some things, but I say two things that I know are very important in a safe space. One, forgiveness. Like, it has to be there to be a safe space. And then the other thing that I would say creates a safe space is the ability to continually look at your spouse the way that God sees them.
Yeah.
Those are two things that are really two of several things, but two things that are really going to help make sure you are in a safe space with your spouse in your marriage. What are some things that come to mind for you as far as these are necessary for a safe space?
Oh, wow. What is necessary for a safe?
Not all the things, because there's more things, but.
Well, I said, oh, wow, because in preparation for this podcast, I was reading the Bible, and I definitely have like a scripture that I wanted to get into, but I didn't know that I was going to get into this earlier. But no, it fits and it makes sense.
Oh, perfect.
But more than anything, like it stems from the passage of scripture that we kind of referenced to last podcast, talking about the love scripture. Like,
yes.
1 Corinthians chapter 13. And in reading it this morning, God was highlighting to me, like, these are the key elements and the things that are necessary to have a safe space with your spouse. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 13, starting at verse 4, and it's 4 through 7. However, I'll read like 2 at a time.
Okay.
And we can like maybe expound upon them. But it says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud. So even right there, well, I'll just keep going. Or rude. It does not demand its own way, and it is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wrong. So in order to have, for me, a safe space with your spouse, love has to be at the root of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if your safe space isn't rooted in love or empowered by love or sponsored by love, call it what you want, love has to be there, then it's not going to be a safe space, right? Because when you have these elements of love within your safe space, then truly it will be safe, but then out of it will be birthed the unity of man and woman, unity of the spouses together, but then out of it will come the fruit that truly the marriage should bring. And so, go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say too, we're saying love, and I think it's important to say when we say love, we're looking at love based on what's being read here.
Correct.
In this scripture.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes people go into marriages and they think, oh, I love this person so much, but then, when a little bump hit on the road, that love started looking real not like what's in this scripture right here. And so I think even as you're listening to Ricky read, think about, is this what love looks like in my marriage? Because if it doesn't look like this, it's going to be real hard, if not impossible, to create a safe space when love doesn't look like this, what he's reading. So even as he's reading, really think, is this what, when I say love, is this what it looks like?
Right. And then it goes on to say in verse 6, love does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Lastly, love never gives up. Love never loses faith. Love is always hopeful, and love endures through every circumstance. And I read it from the New Living King James. Excuse me. The New Living Translation. I said it like that because I was reading the New Living Translation, but I cross-referenced it with the New King James.
Okay.
So it just all came together. Hello. And so I was just like mentally bouncing between the two. However, in it all, love has to be
Yeah.
there, right? Because with love, there's the endurance, there's
Yes.
faith, right? And there's the ability to see past wrongdoing, there's the ability to be hopeful. And I say that and share that because in the realm of having a safe space, some things will be said that may seem counterintuitive to the progression of your marriage. However, you have to be hopeful that we can overcome.
Give an example, because
Yeah.
what is that for the listeners? Like, what does that mean? What could be said that seems counterintuitive for the growth? Like, bring us into that space.
So, I mean, we're having fun with this conversation because you're bouncing around, right? So,
I am.
at first, I think it's pivotal to establish the ingredients of a safe space.
Okay.
And then out of the pots, the gumbo, if you will, of the ingredients, then we can speak to the experience.
A pin there. 'Cause I want to make sure you bring clarity to that statement.
I definitely can. I
Okay.
definitely can. But I believe, again, the ingredients, the foundation is very key because within a safe space, right? So what you just saw and or heard is indicative that we have a safe space, right? Because she had a thought of where we could go. However, let's bring it back because we want to make sure you know what a safe space is. Therefore, when it does take place, you know, aha, this is it, or oh, that will be the results or the fruit or the experiences that will take place. However, even getting back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, I love the part where it says that it's hopeful and it endures, it being love. It endures through every circumstance. And so as you create a safe space between your spouse and yourself, it will allow for you to have endurance through every situation, every circumstance, because love is at the root of it. Love is the sponsor. Love is what's in the pot, in the moment, allowing for the safe space to take place. Now, with that, let me start by, before we get to the experience that you want me to share, when did you find it pivotal or necessary to create a safe space between the two of us?
Oh my
Because
God.
I will say it was your idea. It wasn't my idea to have a safe space. However, I definitely credit you with it. However, when was it that you said, this was necessary?
I would say it was in our very first year of marriage.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't even know. We probably married at best a couple of months.
Yeah.
And you know, we've had maybe 3 arguments our whole marriage. But we had gotten into an argument and we were going back. And so even when I say an argument, like for us, an argument still looks like very mild in nature.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people probably would think, no,
yelling.
none of those things.
In like none of that.
None of those things were happening. So even when I say, just to give better context, Ricky and I were having a discussion. I can't even honestly remember exactly what it was about, or I would share it, whatever. But I genuinely can't even remember what it was about. It was so long ago. But we had gotten to a place in the discussion where he was like, he was thinking what he was thinking. I was thinking what I was thinking. And we didn't have a place to meet in the middle. But outside of even that, it was like, I don't know. It was just like a tension. There was this tension there that made me feel like, man, like either of us feel like we can express ourselves in this moment and be truly understood. And because I don't even know if the conversation centered around right versus wrong, but just maybe a difference in opinion. And like it was just like a standstill. Like either of us felt like the other person was listening, would listen to what was coming next. And it's like, man, like, how can we function this way? And so that's when I was really just like, we need a safe space, which you credit to me. I credit it to a friend that I have, Eve. She's amazing. She's a friend of mine that really just embedded in me during some pivotal transitions in my life, the importance of a safe space in a friendship, like your ability to grow, to learn, develop without being harshly judged. And so I was like, man, like we need a safe space. We need a space where we both know we can be heard. Like even just that ability to be heard and the ability to grow and develop. Because when you're with somebody for a lifetime, growth and development should be occurring.
Should be.
And so I would say, yeah, in that first year of marriage is when I was like, we need a safe space.
Yeah. I mean, it was good. Like, it was good, fruitful, and we definitely grown since then. And even with that, like, and I'm even thinking about the scripture again, where it talks about how it keeps no love. It keeps no record of being wrong. Like, I'm even trying to think back to various occasions where the safe space was utilized, as you had me to put a pin in it. And I'm really doing that as well, because I couldn't even think of one. But one came up, right? It was the most recent one, where you talked to me about your aha moment or your revelatory moment with God as it pertains to you and finances, and how you would like for me to aid in the growth of that. And so, like, that was a safe space moment, right? And so what occurred is Crystal spending time with God. God spoke with her about how she deals with finances and the root of the veering off of his way.
Yeah.
And she then shared with me of how it has manifested itself in our marriage, and how, you know, she wants help.
Yeah.
And allowing for me to hear from God pertaining to it, and the list goes on. However, in the safe space moment, it was for me to hear whatever it was that she had to say. Like, and in hearing her, it wasn't for me to judge her. It wasn't for me to cut her off. It wasn't for me to say, I told you so, or, about time you came to the light. Like, none of those things should occur during a moment within the safe space, right? Like, allowing for your spouse to truly share, vent, or display what has touched their heart or came in within their mind, like, I think is a key ingredient. And you just let the person speak. And I don't even think you asked me for a response. However, you know, you gave me the opportunity, because I think I did say something.
Yeah.
Because you usually do wait for me to say something. And, you know, with it all, like, that's the safe space, essentially, like allowing for your spouse, allowing for yourself to be able to speak to your spouse in a way that you're able to be vulnerable with them. And I think that's where this topic has come about, because we talked about being vulnerable
Right.
previous episode. However, with it and in it, you're just allowing for your spouse to talk. You're not casting judgment. You're not inflicting your thoughts on them. You're not telling them you told you so. None of those things. Like, just let them speak. And out of it, you'll get the benefit of growth.
Yeah. And I would say too, I know one of the things that we've said, and I know I've said, and we've talked about, is we are on the same team.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a very crucial thought process to have in our safe space, because think about it, when you're playing a sport or whatever, if two people are on the same team, even if they're running the play a little differently than was planned or whatever, the thought is not immediately they're trying to make us lose the game.
Right.
The thought is they must see something happening on the field or the court or whatever that I don't see from where I'm standing. But their goal is definitely always to do whatever is necessary for our team to win. And I think when you have that thought process, it allows for you to give even more grace to your spouse when they're not doing the right thing. Because, I mean, nobody's going to get it 100% right. You signed up for it forever. And so I think that having that mindset of we are on the same team, even if I can't understand or see all the things, I know that your heart's intent is for us to win. And so, again, even then, if there's, you know, some bad decisions made here or there, it's like, but I know you didn't do it maliciously. I know you weren't thinking I'm going to destroy our marriage by doing fill in the blank.
Right.
And so I think really coming to that settled thought helps to start even that safe space. I will start after obviously reflecting what it says in Corinthians, but also saying, you know what, let's commit to the fact that we're on the same team. And so even when we get to a disagreement or whatever, if nothing else, we can come to the basis of, I know you didn't do this to try to destroy our marriage.
Yeah.
So since I know that wasn't your thought process, now let me listen to what you're saying about what happened through that lens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, it's so good. And in it all, like, there's faith, right? Because it talks about love is faith as well. And that's how love works. And faith says that, to your point, like we said, to the end,
Yeah.
and so with that in mind, like having faith that, okay, if this comes up, because usually this, and I say it this way because usually the safe space is used when something comes up, or when and there's a moment where it's like some uneasiness and there needs to be words that are shared and are said to make this hurdle become nothing. And so faith says that, all right, I understand that we're in this things forever, and even though it may look a little interesting right now, my love in this marriage and my love for this marriage and my faith that's being used through love in this moment is going to say, okay, we'll make it past this as well. And so, and I even use faith in this predicament or in this moment as well, because with a safe space, it may not all work itself out at that moment, right? There's been times where the safe space has been used. And I don't even think we intro that, hey, I need a safe space moment.
No, we
but
don't.
nonetheless, like, all right, so I guess we'll get
because we live in a safe space.
And with it, we know that the solution or the answer to whatever it is that we're dealing with or going through or overcoming, the answer may not come right now, right? But we know with faith that it's going to take place. And so there's optimism, there's a hope, there's a joy, there's excitement, there's a peace to say, okay, to Crystal's point, there may have been some things that come up where the answer wasn't given or the unity of thought didn't take place instantly. Well, all is well, right? We just cast it over to God and allow for the moment to bring itself back, right? But that's having faith and not being overcome by the uncertainties of the moment, that you're blinded and frustrated because a resolution hasn't taken place at the specific moment.
Yeah. And I would like to touch on, I know towards the end it says, love endures all things. And one of the things that I would say, certain things aren't going to happen in a safe space. Because if it all works together. Let me say it like that. Because if you're cussing somebody out, that's not a safe space.
Okay.
So you can't cuss somebody out and then say love endures all things. Well, you're actually like already topsy-turvying this whole situation. You going out cheating every night or something wild. Like, love endures all things. Like, you're not operating in love. You're not operating in love.
Right.
Like, somebody's hitting somebody, and that's whether it's the man hitting the woman or the woman hitting the man. Love endures all things. No, that is not love. And so I think that even then, and that's not to say, I'm not telling anybody what to do in this situation right now, because, whatever. What I am saying is it's supposed to, if you want a safe space, all of these things have to work together. And there is also an understanding of what love is. Because again, even in the verse, it talks about what love is. And then it says love endures all things. So there's also this understanding that this is a picture of what this is. This is how you should be operating. And I think sometimes it's really important to realize things that you're doing that are making it more challenging to create a safe space than it has to be. If you're literally always lying, it's going to be real hard to create a safe space. If you're yelling and screaming at each other, it's going to be hard to create a safe space. And so I think there are some very practical things that you can even just write down. We're not going to do these things. Eliminate, to start building what that safe space looks like for you. And I would even say for different people that can look, there's some broad things, but then it can start to look really specific. Based on the couple, hey, this is the thing that's really triggering for me. So please don't do that. Whatever list needs to be made so that you guys can help define what a safe space looks like for you.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good and God's good. And I say that because this morning, like I said, I was prepared, right? And God took me to 1 Corinthians 13, but I wanted to read 12, but God was like, no, read 13. And now I see why. I had to read all of 13 because in what you're saying right now is spoken to in verse 11 when it says, when I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child, but when I grew up, I put away childish things. And I say it connects because the idea is that you get married to an adult,
You're an
right?
adult.
You're not married to a person that has childish ways. And oftentimes we have to put away those childish ways of conflict resolution, put away those childish things of communicating with another individual.
Cussing.
Those childish things, right? We have to put away the childish things. And when I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became an adult, when I came of age, I put away those things. And so my prayer is that not only is love the roots of your safe space, but then you're also connected with somebody that's desiring, right? Even if they aren't there just now, right? Because you may be thinking like, oh snap, that's my spouse, that's that childish one. Well, you married the person, okay?
You did.
At the end of the day, you married the person.
That was your intelligent decision.
It was your intelligent decision. However, let's make another one and pray that the childish ways are no longer within your spouse. However, with that, we're reminded that, you know, we have to put away those things. And so to you talked about triggering things, and I brought up the childish ways. For me, I know one of the things for you that was triggering was like raising of the voice.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so I think within like the first argument or whatnot we have, I raised my voice to prove my point because, you know, there's times where Crystal get to talking, I get to talking, I ain't finished what I said, but I want to finish what I'm saying before she's saying. So I raise my voice to make sure she hear what I said and all that she's trying to say. And then she let me know, oh, no, like that's triggering for me. And from that moment on, I was like, cool, like, not cool like I'm gonna use this to get at you, but cool like, all right, I won't raise my voice. Like, but that's again putting away the childish ways. Childish ways says I'm gonna do the most nitpickingest thing. I'm gonna do the thing that's gonna irritate you the most. I'm gonna do that thing that I know gets you frazzled, razzled, frustrated, and quiet. For most people, when they get angry, they get quiet. And I'm gonna do that every time. Well, no, like she told me that was a triggering thing for you. Boom, I put it away. And I think that's another key part about how to strengthen the safe spaces that a marriage will have is when your spouse shares with you triggering things or things that they don't like or things that are discomforting to them or even things that they've been through.
Yeah.
If you were to do one of those things or some of those things, it would have for them to respond negatively. Don't do it.
Right.
So it's just as simple as that. But again, that's us having the ability to put away childish things. Why? Because I grew up, you grew up, your spouse grew up. And that's a key indicator that you're dealing with an adult spouse.
Right. And I would say as well, don't think, oh yeah, my spouse is so childish. It's childish things in you too.
Right.
Listen, because I say marriage is like the eternal growth process. Like you continue to grow and develop. And so don't even think of it as, you know, you're putting away this childish thing and now you're over that thing and you're never going to have to work through anything else. There are different areas where God will use your spouse to continue to grow you in life. And so don't always be pointing the finger either. That's also childish. Like always think, oh yeah. I need to just go play this whole podcast for my spouse because once they hear this, nah, it's a reason you don't want to hurt it. And it's probably some childish things that are in you that also need to be developed, and you just don't see it that way because you feel like they just getting on your nerves and why don't they just do right? But
oh, you wanted an example. And there's a beautiful example with the idea of pointing fingers, right? Because we have a daughter. She's 7 years old. Shouts out to her. I'm gonna use it for this example. And I know that when she gets older, this will be put away, so I can use it right now. How about that? When she does something wrong, or more specifically, Rain has an assortment of things that she's supposed to do before leaving the house each day going to school. Oftentimes, there'll be some things missed. Either she'll forget to put on lotion, or she'll forget her water bottle, or she'll forget this, or she'll forget that. And rather than saying, okay, yeah, I'll do better next time, or yeah, I missed it because of XYZ 1, 2, 3. No, it's Ricky's fault. Usually Ricky does something wrong, or Ricky moved something, or Ricky was talking to me, or she was distracted because of what Ricky did. It's like, whoa. We can't be pointing fingers at somebody else because of the things that you didn't do or neglected to do or chose not to do or forgot to do. Like, it's okay to admit when you're wrong with the idea that you're willing to do better. And so, again, like, I love that no finger pointing moment because that's the childish way. But now you're grown.
Now you grown. And I would say too, I know one of the things that helps create a safe space is not talking to your friends about everything. And I know you may think that your husband don't know that you telling your friends all y'all business, but men can tell when your friends are looking at them sideways. Men can tell when your mama looking at them sideways. Like sometimes your husband doesn't feel safe in expressing himself, expressing his vulnerability, expressing what's really going on in his mind. Cause he already knows step one, you finna get on the phone with one of your friends and they're gonna know everything that he said in this moment that was supposed to be between the two of you. And I think it's really important to know the difference between when to get help if there's something you genuinely need help for, and when you just venting. Like I don't feel like you need to vent to your friends about your spouse. I just don't personally feel that way. I don't participate in those type of conversations. If I'm around a group of women and they start talking about their husbands, I'd be like, I'm finna head out because I don't got time for this. Because then too, when you get in those moments, then they all talking about their husbands and they start thinking, why you not saying nothing about yours? My problems are not your problems. And sometimes you then start feeling guilty about not saying something bad about your spouse, which is weird. Right. But then you start feeling bad, so you want to chime in and have something to say. So you just start making random complaints, and then next thing you know, you're carrying home these complaints that aren't even yours. You was fine with doing the dishes for everybody, but since your friend complained about it, now you home and you mad, like, why I gotta do everybody dishes? You never had a problem with it before. And I think it's important to know you can't just be out here talking to everybody about your business. If you genuinely need help for something that's going on, there should be a very specific, very short list. 3 people tops. Very short list of people that you are asking for advice from. And even then, for me, which I said in the other podcast, that looks like prayer. Like, my mama not finna sit up here and listen to me talk about Ricky. She not. She could cut it off and be like, let's pray. Like, what do we need to pray about? I don't need to hear all the problems to pray. And so you need to be intentional when you are seeking help to know, one, I'm seeking help. I'm not trying to vent. You don't need to vent. If you need to vent, find a safe way to have that conversation with your husband, because venting with your friends isn't going to help your marriage. It's not. It's not. And so that's one thing that's also important in a safe space, just making sure your business is your business.
It's so very true and interesting all at the same time, right? The whole fact of, you're around your friends and bad things are being shared and the expectation is for you to share something bad too. That's wild. And,
It's wild.
However, if it's taking place, now we know the more adult thing to do.
Exit.
Right? It's
exit stage.
Exit. Don't even try to conjure up something negative to say, because we know that life and death is in the power of the tongue. And when you say a thing, you're ultimately creating something, whether it's creating the action in your spouse or is it creating a thought in your mind that could lead up to looking for whatever it is that you
right.
And I think it's interesting, right? It's so very interesting. But I think at the same time, something that you said that I want to make sure we have clarity on is that you said we live a safe space lifestyle. And it's not like something that you turn on, turn off type deal. How do you live a safe space lifestyle?
I would say, one, by creating boundaries, and with that, I mean boundaries around how I'm going to communicate with my spouse. I'm not cussing at Ricky. I'm not doing it. I don't just be walking around cussing anyway, but there's no level of mad that I'm going to get that's going to make me cuss him out. I'm not doing it. It's disrespectful.
I mean, you could say we.
Right. Yeah, honestly, we. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to him, but it's also disrespectful to me. And I think that one of the things in a safe space, you're not living a reactive lifestyle. You are living an intentional lifestyle based on the person that you are called to be to your spouse. And so that's one thing. So creating boundaries about how I communicate with you, how we communicate with each other, creating boundaries around, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, repercussions. if something happens and one of us gets upset, I don't have to worry about sleeping outside. Ricky don't have to worry about sleeping outside. Nobody's kicking anybody out.
Or the couch.
Like,
you didn't even have to go there.
Right. Like, nobody's sleeping on the couch. We sleeping in this bed, period. Like, that's what that is. Like, this is our bed and we're sleeping in it. Like, so even making boundaries around the extent to which any upset or anger or whatever can go. Like, there's a very small hallway for where it can, not hallway literally, because we're just talking about homes, but there's a very small range for which that can exist. Like, there's boundaries around that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the ways. Let me think. Did you add some? I'm thinking, making sure.
No, I mean, because I just want to like test it out, right? Because in what you said is that we don't live a reactive life. And I know for myself, a way that I'm not responsible or reactive to various things that are done by yourself, I'll say Jesus Christ. Like, that's like my go-to. And I don't say it with his name in vain, but I'm saying it like, Jesus, help. Like, you saw what took place, because I did, and I know you did too. And like, what in the world? And so like, that's my response. Rather than snapping at Crystal, I'll just say like, Jesus Christ. However, I want to pose a question to you. Like, do you get irritated when I do it? Or have you ever recognized that like, that's my go-to, rather than being like reactive to you or like spaz out or whatever, whatnot?
No, I would say I definitely recognize when you do it. I would say more so than anything, I'm like, my mind goes to make sure you calling him and not calling his name in vain. Like, that's literally more so where my thought process goes to when something happens. But I think, no, it doesn't. I've noticed, but it doesn't trigger me. Again, my thought literally just goes to, you better not be calling my Lord name in vain. So that's really my thought.
Hello. And what's cool is that we have kids.
Yeah.
And in me doing what I do, I've noticed the kids will call on the name of Jesus at the most opportune times. And it's like, okay, so though it's a thing that helps me, it also is a thing that's helping the kids recognize who their source is and where help can come from and things. So, I thought it was like a fun residual out there too.
And I think for me, I normally get a little quiet. I don't ignore. That's so rude and disrespectful. It's like on my top one list of things. I hate it. So not ignoring, but I get quiet. And normally I do that because, again, a part of maturity is learning to tame your tongue. And so I allow myself a moment. If I'm upset by something, I gotta let God minister to my emotions, because that's honestly what it is. It's your emotions are trying to flare up and take over what's happening. And anytime you allow your emotions to take over what's happening, I don't care if it's literally like the worst moment or the best moment. Like, in the worst moment, okay, your emotions flare up and you cussing, screaming, yelling, doing whatever ridiculous stuff. You out somewhere having a good time, you let your emotions take over there, you end up snorting cocaine somewhere or something wild. Like, I don't know. Like, you should not let your emotions take you over. Like, no, sometimes I do. I was just having such a good time and I don't know how I ended up here. Like,
I had good times.
Damn. I mean, I've never done that, but
like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But any moment, the point is, at any moment that you let your emotions take over, it doesn't end well. It's not good. So I know that it's my emotions trying to take over. So I'd be like, Crystal, just be quiet. Like, be quiet. And I would say, again, that's that combination of creating our safe space. He lets me be quiet. He don't egg me on like, no, what are you saying? What are you doing? Da, 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 da. He know, I think, especially now, I would say he knows. He can look and he like, let me let her have this minute to get with God. And I'm not getting with my own thoughts, because sometimes y'all get quiet and you start running through all the scenarios and it get even worse.
Yeah.
Take a moment to get quiet and get with God. Let him minister to your emotions so you can calm yourself down.
Yeah.
And from there, then it's like, okay, now we can have a conversation about whatever it is, that needs to take place. So I would say I think that's really helpful in creating our safe space, is knowing when we need to pause. Which, of course people have asked, don't go to bed angry. Like, is that a thing? And I think one thing that I would say towards that is, even anger is rooted in like hurt or fear. And so,
And in other words, with that, because I'm glad you hit it.
yeah.
In other words, if you're angry about something, right, you also have to then ask yourself, what are you fearful of?
Yeah.
So when she says fear is rooted in anger, that's how that plays out. And so,
right. Yeah, you're afraid of something, or like I said, or you're hurt by something. Like, so you really have to, so for example, dishes. Like, you're angry because there's dishes in the sink. Maybe you're not really angry because there's dishes in the sink. Maybe your feelings are hurt because you feel like day in and day out you washing these dishes and you feel unvalued. You feel like there's just this assumption that you're going to do everything for everybody. Well, you're not angry. You feel devalued, and that hurts your feelings. And so have a conversation about that in authenticity, and not an attacking conversation that says, you don't value me. You always got me washing these dishes, and no, but a conversation that says, hey, I feel like I do a lot around the house, and when all the dishes are in the sink, after I've done so many things at the end of the day, and everybody just walks away, and I'm in the kitchen by myself for another 45 minutes washing dishes after I cook, it makes me feel like people don't really value the fact, like you guys as my family don't really value the fact that I'm taking the time to do this, and that hurts my feelings. But that's where that vulnerability piece comes in.
right.
Because most people stop before they get to and that hurts my feelings. Because you don't want people to know that they can hurt your feelings. But in a marriage, you have to be able to be transparent and vulnerable. And so sometimes I could be mad about the spoon in the sink, and I wake up in the morning, I don't say anything. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, it's just a spoon. Like, it's just a spoon. Like, what? I don't actually care about a spoon being in the sink. I was just tired that day, or I was able to just process what all the other things that were going on. So I wouldn't say we go to bed angry. Like, if there's something that's pricking our spirit, there are times where we've had conversations that go late because it's like, no, we need to get to a space, but where we're able to be not, tussling up through the night, like just stressed out. You can't even sleep. But I would say, I'm gonna go to bed. Because sometimes staying up trying to talk about a spoon in the sink, that's gonna cause more harm than good. Like, you're gonna be so stressed out. And if it's not a kingdom issue, I'm not staying up for hours talking about it. I'm not.
Right. And oftentimes as well, talking to your spouse may not even give you the solution or the answer that you need. And so I love that passage of scripture. My understanding and my takeaway from it is that there are some things where I'm maybe frustrated or angry about, and that I should talk to Crystal about. But there may be some things that I just need to cast my cares on God and pray and talk to God about it, and get God's perspective on it, and gets God's resolution and solution for it and on it. And that's the piece that I need to go to sleep, because there are times where I'm angry or mad about something that Crystal don't even know, and that I'm angry and mad about, right? So why should I damper her day or the moment or the night to try to say, no, we're going to stay up and we're going to talk about this? Like, no. I just need to talk to God about this, because maybe I'm hurt about a thing. Maybe I am fearful about a thing, and God doesn't want us to be that way. And Crystal's not my God, but God is God.
Right.
I can always talk to God, which I love the fact that he never sleeps nor slumber, and he could be everywhere all at the same time. So as I'm praying and talking to God at, nighttime for me, you can do the same wherever nighttime is for you. And with that, I do go to sleep with a peace, right? I don't go to sleep angry or frustrated, largely because I know that there are some things I have to talk to Crystal about, and there are some things I need to talk to God about.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's going to be talked out. It's going to be worked out, and I will have a peace that will allow for me to sleep through the night. And I think oftentimes we put more on our spouse than we necessarily need to. But at the end of the day, we both have to have a relationship with God that is our anchor, that is our source, that will allow for us to see through and overcome every temptation, every circumstance, and every frustration that may come your way. And so don't always look for and I say all that to say, right? Oftentimes a safe space could be that, you know what I'm saying, you know where your prayer room is, or you know where you can go to, where you know you can hear from God. Maybe it's a journal, maybe it's the bathroom. Oftentimes, I won't talk about myself, but I just gave you scenarios that works for me. But nonetheless, I'm saying all that to say, like, that's a safe space as well.
Yeah.
So not putting too much on your spouse, not allowing or wanting your spouse to carry the burden of hurt that you have. That's another thing, right? Like, stop. Why? Because you hurt doesn't mean your spouse has to hurt.
Right.
Because you frustrated doesn't mean your spouse has to be frustrated. Like, allow for your marriage. I think that's another way that we can allow for our marriage to remain a safe space, is because we don't put things on our spouse unnecessarily. Like, no, we have God for that. Like, we have Holy Spirit for that. That is our advocate. That is our counselor. That is the one that only says whatever the Father says. And so,
yeah. And
that's my piece.
And I was going to say too, I like how you were saying, just, not putting things on your spouse, and, your frustration doesn't have to be their frustration. And it's funny because I thought something that just happened. Like, so Ricky's birthday recently passed, and I went and I got him these gifts, and I had to have the kids with me at the mall, which going with them to the store is just a task, like both of them, because they're so small. And so it was just a whole ordeal. It's very active. Yes. And so it was very exhausting, like just navigating them, and we had company. And so there were so many things that I was trying to navigate to also make sure I got to the store to get his gifts and all this stuff. And I've been saving this money and that. So anyways, I get the gifts. I get home, like, you want to open the gifts? He's like, no, not right now. I was so mad. And like, I was like, okay. So I wait like 30 more minutes. Well, now do you want to open the gifts? He's like, no, the kids aren't out here, everybody together. And because I had mentioned, like, the kids are excited for you to open the gifts. Exactly. Like, and so,
So they want to be there when you open the gifts.
So I'm like, okay. So then it's like, literally we get to like later that night, and I'm like, you want to open the gifts? And he's still not opening the gifts. And then we get to the next day, and it's like, you want to open the gifts? And he's still not opening gifts. And I'm getting so frustrated. But then I didn't say anything to him about me being so mad. And I don't know if he could notice or not notice, but here's the thing that I even want to get to. The truth about it is, my anger was rooted in selfishness. I want to see him open these gifts. These are his gifts. He could wait till 3 years from now to open these gifts if he want to, truthfully, because they are his gifts. And if I'm giving him these gifts in love because I just want him to be happy and I want him to have them, it really should not matter when he opens the gifts. It's truly up to him. And so sometimes you even have to sit and realize with yourself, is my anger rooted in selfishness? Like, am I just mad because this person's not doing what I want them to do the way I want them to do it when I want them to do it? And so sometimes you have to really think about that as well. And it takes maturity. It really does take maturity. But taking a minute to not then explode about, whatever type of stuff. Because even there was a moment I was like, his love languages is not gifts. Wait, see if I give him another gift again. And now, but I had to really tell myself, like, Crystal, this is the enemy. This is not love talking, saying these things. But that takes maturity to process all those things. And it's not always best to open your mouth and be trying to process these statements before God has time to set in your mind, like, hey, I'm trying to talk to you about what's really going on here. Like, there's a problem with you, not with him not opening the gifts. And so taking time to allow God to minister to you in moments of frustration and of, anger can also help you understand what's really going on and keep that space safe. Because the gift thing, It was nothing he did. It was me, my selfishness, my anger.
And in that, we're in this safe space. As I was trying to interject before, she was like, hold on. And so I waited until she said what she had to say. And I think the key point of this gift, since we're here in the gift moment, the key part of that is that Crystal said that, hey, when you open the gifts, the kids want to be there to see you open the gifts
Right.
as well. So make sure that we're all around when you do open the gifts. And I said, okay. And so she knows me and the fact that if we say a thing, like I'm going to stick to the
Right.
things that are said. So what I heard was all of us need to be there when
Yeah.
you open these gifts. And the random moments that she asked me about opening the gifts, one kid wasn't there.
Somebody will be missing.
All right. And then there's another time that the other one came and gone. And she like, whoa, but I'm like, no, everybody's not here. And then it came to a point. So that was Saturday. So then
Yeah.
it rolled over onto Sunday. And the gifts were still at the table and all because everybody wasn't there at
Right.
the same time for various reasons. Right. And so then dinner time came around and she was like, well, maybe since we all are here, he gonna put the gifts. And, you know, I had it in me to be like, no, I'm not gonna open it right now. But I also am attentive to the Holy Spirit. And Holy Spirit was just telling me the things in which she just shared as to why she wants me to open the gifts. And in her excitement and in that she had a buy-in, a personal buy-in to these gifts. And so that's a part of the reason why. And in the midst of before eating dinner, I was like, okay, we're all here. Let me open them. So much so that you can't see them in the shot, but they're like over there. Because I left them out. I didn't even take them to the room because I knew how excited she was for the accomplishment of the purchasing and the giving of the gifts. And so I said, okay, I'm going to leave it out. I'm going to let her see it, let the kids see it, let everybody see it. It's
Right.
such a big deal. But all that to say, in the midst of this safe space and sharing the importance of it and the usage of it, at the end of the day, it's for our good, right? It's for us to be able to look at our spouse and be happy with the person that we see, be able to sleep at night peacefully. But more than anything, that when you're around other people, you don't have to be nervous or apprehensive about bringing your spouse around your friends because
Yeah.
you've used your spouse as your safe space and your sounding board and the person that you vent to. And your spouse knows that there's times where you want a response. There's times when you don't want a response. But at the end of the day, there's things that you want to share that'll help the marriage grow exponentially better than where it was at the time.
Yeah. And I do want to say this too, because I feel like it is very important, even for probably especially women that are listening. The whole gift thing, Ricky was literally only operating based on what I had actually said I wanted in the first place, which was for everybody to be there. Like, and so even then it gets to the point I'm trying to yell, not yell, but I'm trying to call children back into the room. Hurry up and come back here, Ricky, over there. Like, but literally he was only operating based on what I initially even said that I wanted. And I make a point of that as well, because the enemy will literally try to use anything to try to get you frazzled, razzled, like, you know, all this other type of stuff. It's this celebratory moment. And the enemy's trying to like creep in and have a place to make like, you know, me upset or, you know, whatever. He had the opportunity to be petty, but thankfully my husband chose peace over petty, you know, and just open the gifts. But it's like, sometimes even as wives, I think we forget, like, going back to the same team idea, your husband is not trying to do things to make you upset on purpose or do things to frustrate you or anything like that. And a lot of times your husband can be operating, doing something based on the last thing that you said, and you just forgot you said it. Or maybe now you're just, you know, change your mind and you're like, no, but I want to see the gifts now. Like, whatever your thing is. But I would say be mindful of, in any moment, the enemy could be, he's constantly trying to find ways. And even as many years as we are into our marriage and as great as our marriage is, the enemy doesn't stop trying to do things here and there to try to, do whatever. You sign up for it forever. And so, even sometimes be mindful. It's hard to be mindful sometimes, but try to be mindful. Like I said, Ricky was literally just trying to do what I asked in the first place.
For my gifts.
For his gifts. Like,
so much so that they gave me cards and they gave me gifts. Crystal specifically said, don't open the gifts until we're all there.
Yeah.
I had already opened the cards on Saturday, the day of my birthday, because it wasn't a part of the stipulations that she had set. And so I love that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, to the point, like you said, it may be that your spouse is listening to the last thing that you said to the T. Like, I listened to what you had asked and requested, knowing that it was something that you all did together as a family. So it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, it's cool. It's fun. And we continue to grow. We continue. And I think, again, even talking about safe spaces, because we have a safe space, it allows us, this is the first time we're having this conversation about the gifts.
True.
But because we have a safe space, we can have this conversation for the first time in this setting, because nobody's about to get all mad and angry and yelling and I don't know, any other weird stuff. Like, I don't know why. It's just real weird to me when people be doing this type of stuff. But like, nobody's going to do that, because again, in a safe space, you have boundaries about how you communicate. Oh, another really important thing, I don't know how much time, but another really important thing in a safe space, don't make threats. A lot of times people don't have a safe space in their marriage because somebody always threatening to leave. It's never going to be safe, even if that person, because you have somebody that's just scared, walking on eggshells, always trying to make sure they don't do something wrong because they're trying to appease you or whatever. So they can't even be their authentic self. They don't have a safe space to learn and to grow and develop. They never want to try anything new because they're afraid that if they do any wrong thing, you're going to be out the door. Like, it's impossible to be in a safe space when you're always nervous that even though somebody told you in front of all these people, signed a whole contract and said, till death do us part, I'm going to be here forever, they think you always about to leave. You always taking off your ring. You are like, it can't be safe. Fear and safety can't coexist. And so you have to really be mindful about statements that you're making that are invoking fear. And when you're trying to scare somebody into doing what you want them to do by, saying, oh, I'm going to leave, I'm going to withhold things, whatever it is, when you're trying to use fear to get somebody to do what you want them to do, fear and safety cannot coexist.
Yep. And when you saying fear, I was thinking manipulation. So
yes,
you're right. You definitely can't use manipulation.
So I would definitely say, like, if that's something that's happening, like, there are some very immediate things you can do to start creating a safe space that are going to make a drastic difference. One, stop the threats. You staying or you leaving? Make up your mind. Choose you this day. Okay? You staying or you leaving?
Yeah.
And if you're staying, you're staying. And don't talk about leaving anymore. Like, that's what that is. And if you leaving, leave. Be gone and don't be trying to come back. Like, make up your mind. So stop the threats. Again, boundaries around the type of conversation you have as far as yelling, cussing, all this other type of stuff. Boundaries around what happens when you're upset. Again, you don't have to worry about sleeping on the couch or outside or foolishness like that. Like, really try to really sit and talk about what are some real boundaries that need to be created around the way that you communicate with each other. Because one of the things that I would definitely say crumbles a safe space more than any other thing are the words that you use. And Ricky spoke so well about the importance of words in your marriage, over your marriage, in the previous podcast. So definitely check that out. But it's the words that you're using that actually create a lot more damage than you might think. So really being intentional about that.
Yep. No, very well said. Like I've done my synopsis. But I mean, I'm hearing the overflow that you're flowing with. So I'm captivated with the things that you have to share and say. So,
Because I feel like it's just so important. And I would even say,
in what?
being in a safe space.
Okay.
And I would even say for some people that didn't get to witness like a healthy marriage in front of them, maybe their parents were divorced, maybe they, were raised by a single parent, maybe there was a lot of arguments in the home, whatever the case may be. One of the ways, if you're just like, I don't even know what that looks like, definitely take tips from this podcast, but even think about your closest friendship. What does that look like? What makes you feel so comfortable to be vulnerable with that person? What makes you feel like you can be yourself around that person? What makes you feel like you can make mistakes but still bounce back? Like, and things work themselves out. Like that's a good picture as well, as to know like what does safe space really, really look like, especially if you have those friendships that have gone on for years and years and years. Like, you bounce back from things, like, and that's what it's supposed to look like. And I know one of the things that definitely will help as well, which I probably might end up saying this in like every podcast because it's just that important to me. But just in talking to God, I was praying, just say, God, I love Ricky, boop, boop. But anyways, God was like, as a spouse, so God can't do anything in the earth without a person. Like he uses people to do things. Like whether that's you didn't have no money to get food and boom, a random person buys you groceries. You didn't, you really needed a hug that day and somebody gives you a hug. Like God uses people to minister what he wants to get to people in the earth. And one of the things that God was sharing with me is that as a spouse, as Ricky's wife, make it personal, as Ricky's wife, I am supposed to be the first representation of God's love to him on earth. Period. Like when you're married to somebody, you should be the first representation of what love is from God.
Yeah.
And so when you're operating in that way, when you understand your assignment in that way, there's certain things you're just not going to do because it doesn't reflect God's love. And it's a privilege that God allowed me to be Ricky's wife, because he looked at me, and in my mind, this is how I see it. He looked at me and he said, man, I want Ricky to be married. And he said, I want somebody to be able to represent the embodiment of what I am to him on earth. I want him to know every day in every way that he is loved. Who is going to be able to do that? Who is going to strive to do that? And he saw me and he said, Crystal, she the one. Like, she's going to be the person that I'm choosing to represent my love towards Ricky on the earth. And there's going to be a ton of other people that do that for him as well. But I'm the first stop. I'm the one you see in the morning, when he wake up, when he go to bed, at night. Like, he spends all this time with, like, I am a representation of that for him. And he's supposed to be a representation of that for me. And I can honestly say he is. He does a great job. I feel so loved. But yeah, like, and then when you go into it with that thought process, it's gonna create a safe space, because even then, the way that I treat him, the way that I love him, the things that I do, it's not based on what he does for me or how he looks at me or whatever the case may be, because even in that, God loved us first. He treated us well first. Yeah. He did things for us first. It wasn't a reaction type of thing. He initiates the love in all circumstances. And so my job, my duty, assignment as his wife is to initiate the love. Whether it's easy, whether, he did something that made me feel away, like, no, my job is to initiate the love. My job is to forgive quickly, like, because I'm supposed to be a representation of God's love to him on earth.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so you're looking at me to do what? That was something that you received a
Nothing.
revelatory word from spending time with God. And so,
No.
what's your question as you look at me?
I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. I mean, you looked at me like, now it's your turn. Which I mean,
Tell them how much you love me. No, I'm just kidding.
there's no question I can roll with it, but at the end of the day, I think that's a beautiful thing of the revelation that God shared with you. And I think it's a beautiful thing and a testament for spouses to look at themselves to see if they are conducting themselves in a way that they are reflective of God's love for their spouse right here on earth. And so I think we spoke through, well, not only what love is, but the fact that we need to grow up and put away childish things. But at the end of the day, like, we're here. And, as you've done, I think I could read now the last verse of 1 Corinthians 13.
Yeah, go ahead.
Still at all. And it says the last verse is verse 13, which is pretty cool, right? Chapter 13, ending in verse 13. How awesome is that? 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And so, and all of the things that you're doing and all of the characteristics that are indicative of your marriage, whether there's faith, it should be faith. There should be hope. There should be love. It's love that's going to endure and last forever. And so let us love our spouses, whether it's in the safe space or beyond the safe space, or introducing the idea of having a safe space within your marriage and within your household. Let us do it in a way of love. And in doing so, it will be fruitful and it will give us, yield to us the fruit that we're desiring. And so fun times, good times at the end of the day. I think great things were shared. And I'm looking forward to what's in store.
So, yeah, marriage matters. No, I'm just kidding. No, so I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you will definitely take some pieces, if not all pieces, to really start to develop and grow the safe space in your marriage. Hopefully, even there are some things that will help you know how to communicate better to help make your space safer for your marriage, because you'll have growth. You'll have growth in that, in doing that for sure. So make sure you join us next time for the next podcast. We post weekly. Yeah, we in this thing. So I'm super excited. If you didn't check the last episode out, make sure you go and check that out. I think there's actually 2 now before this. Anyways, go check all the ones out that you haven't checked out, and tell a friend and tell a friend. And yeah, so we can start really just helping everyone have these happy, healthy marriages the way that God intended for it to be, because it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be a struggle. It should be an amazing, safe place for growth.
Yep.
So until next time.